Hello, and let me say Merry Christmas for this Theology Thursday. We're only a couple of days away from Christmas. And so I wanted to share with you an interesting interchange that we find in the book of Matthew and its connection to a prediction and talk a little bit about that. So in Matthew chapter 2, Jesus has been born and the wise men arrive. And the wise men are looking for where the King of the Jews would be. And so here's what we read. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. Now the word Christ is a Greek word Christ, which means anointed one, or Messiah. So where the Messiah was to be born. So verse 5. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So they make a reference to a prophet who predicted that the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. Where is that found? Well, that's found in Micah chapter 2, verse 5. And here's what that verse says. But you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah. Ephrathah is just what we would call a county. So Bethlehem is a city. Ephrathah is like a region, or what we call a county. Who are too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you shall come forth from me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from old, from ancient days. So we do read that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, even though his parents were not from there. They went to Bethlehem because Joseph was a descendant of David, and everybody had to go to their hometown to be registered. And so Joseph, as a descendant of David, took his very pregnant wife, Mary, with him, and they went to Bethlehem for him to be registered for the Roman census. And while there, Jesus was born. So you read that story, you go, okay, that's interesting and all. But what we really see is God doing everything to make it really awesome. So let me show you what I mean by that. If Jesus would have been born in Nazareth, he could not have been the Messiah because he would not have fulfilled the prophecies. This one in particular. So God has predicted that the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. That the Messiah would be a descendant of David. That he would be born in Bethlehem. And so God is not just like in control of his people. God's in control of all of history. So God has caused the Roman Empire to rise. God has selected Joseph and Mary. And God is going to get them to Bethlehem for Jesus to be born in Bethlehem. And he does that through the Roman census. So God's taken all of this history to make every prediction in the Old Testament come to pass as God said it would happen. And when you read Micah 5:2, they don't give the whole thing in Matthew 2 because Herod's only worrying about where this potential Messiah would be born. But in Micah 5:2, we read the rest about his identity. His coming forth is from old, from ancient of days. In other words, Jesus was born, but it was not his beginning. It was the beginning of his human flesh, of him taking on human nature. But the reality is Jesus really wasn't born into our world. Jesus came into our world through the process of birth because Jesus existed from all of eternity. As it says here, his coming is from days of old. So these wise men from the east show up. They go to the main city, Jerusalem, the capital of this Roman province of Judea. They say, look, we saw a star. We know there's someone, the King of the Jews, who has been born. We want to meet him. And man, everybody's worried. Everybody's troubled. Is this going to be a revolution against Rome? Are we going to be stomped down again as we have been in the past when people tried to revolt against Rome? Herod's troubled. People of Jerusalem are troubled. So he brings in the scribes and says, man, you know the Bible. Where's the Messiah going to be born? And they know immediately. Bethlehem. Because the prophet said it. because the Bible predicted it. And so when we worship Jesus the Messiah, when we come to Christmas and we think, we sing a song like, "O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lay." This isn't just it happened to be Bethlehem. This was part of God's plan. The entirety of Jesus' life, part of God's plan. The entirety of Jesus from conception to resurrection. All of it is a part of God's plan, and all of it fits in the hundreds of predictions we have in the Old Testament about this coming Messiah. So when you gather to celebrate on Christmas in a couple of days, rejoice that nothing in Jesus' life was accidental. Even from the beginning of his earthly ministry, from his birth in Bethlehem, it was a part of the plan of God. It had been predicted by God that it would happen. And God is going to work all things together to accomplish his purpose in the life of Jesus Christ. So we don't just celebrate God coming into our world. We celebrate God coming into our world in the town of Bethlehem, as predicted in the Old Testament, and something even the scribes recognized. Because our God is totally in charge of everything. He is absolutely sovereign, and he expresses that through his providential working in our world. So let me say again, Merry Christmas, and may God bless you.